Hi, this is Tammy. Welcome back. We are going to be solving equations by factoring. And in order to do this, you really have to understand the zero product property. So let's go over that real quick. If you take any two numbers and multiply them together, and if the answer is 0, that means one of the numbers had to have been 0. That makes sense, right? So it's easy when there's numbers and you can see the 0. Sometimes their numbers won't be there. Like here we have 5x times 0 is 0. Okay, you still see the 0. That's pretty decent. And then here's a 0 being multiplied times x plus 7. You don't know what x is, but you know that the other one is 0. That means the answer is going to be 0. If the product is 0, one of the factors must be 0. So how can we use this to solve equations? I'll show you. So here we have two things multiplied together that equal 0. One of them is x and the other thing is x plus 5. You have no idea what the x is, but for sure, since it does equal 0 when you multiply these two things together, we can safely assume that x either equals 0 or the x plus 5 equals 0. So x equals 0, it could be a possibility. That one's already done. Now the other one you just solve. We get our answer is x equals -5. That's a possibility you have two answers. Okay, that's cool. Let's do it again. Now this time you have two things, but they're not being multiplied together. There's a subtraction there. So you need to factor. So the first thing I'm going to do is pull a 5 out of both. We get 5 times n squared minus 4 equals 0. Okay, you could start working from here, but to make your life a little easier, make sure that the thing that's in parentheses is completely factored. That is not. I can do it one more time. That is the difference of two perfect squares. So in factored form, it would be n plus 2 times n minus 2. So I have three things multiplied together. One of them must equal 0. Write it all out. Well, 5 equal to 0? Yeah, no, we know that's not going to be true. So it's going to be one of the other two. So we need to solve both of those. And we have two possible answers for n. That's either -2 or +2. This is more like something you might see in your algebra class. You don't see a 0 on the other side. You have to make a 0 on the other side by doing algebra. Let's start by adding 56 to both sides. And we get x squared plus 15x plus 56 equals 0. Okay, so now you need to factor that trinomial. You got to think of two numbers that when you multiply them together are going to be 56, but when you combine them will be 15x in the middle, and those two numbers are +7 and +8. Set each one of those factors equal to 0 and solve. And we have x equals -7 or x equals -8. This is the basic idea of factoring and solving. Now we end up having to do a little bit more complicated algebra. We need to subtract the 8 from both sides. 15x squared minus x minus 6 equals 0. Now if you need a review of how to factor, I'll put a link up in the corner for a video I made for that. In order to find out what the factors are going to be, you would try to maybe pull something out, but there's nothing you can pull out of all of these terms because of that -1x in the middle. So what you do is you multiply the 15 times the 6. You multiply the number in front of the x squared times the constant. Hey, you know what? I made a little mistake in the video here. I should have taken 15 times -6, but I think we can still make this work out. We need a -1 in the middle, so it's got to be 9 and 10, but we're just going to make one of those negative, and that's where the -90 is going to come from. So I'm sorry about that, but I didn't think it was worth redoing this whole thing. It's going to be fine. See what I did there in the middle? I'll circle it. -10, +9. When I combine those, I will get a -x in the middle, a -1x. Now, put the parentheses around the first two terms and the last two terms because we are doing something called factor by grouping. We're going to pull common factors out of just the two terms that are in the parentheses. So in the first one, what can come out of a 15x squared and a -10x? Well, it's going to be a 5x. So I'm going to pull those out and I am left with 3x minus 2. Now for the back end here, I need to pull out a 3. That's the only thing I can take out of a 9 and a 6. And I'm left with 3x minus 2. You know you did factoring by grouping right if what's in the parentheses is the same. I'm so sorry, you're going to have to listen to Bill. I want to push through. Okay, so let's finish this one up. You now have 5x plus 3 times 3x minus 2 equal to 0. That is two factors. One of them is the 0, so we're going to set each one equal to 0 and solve. First one, if I subtract 3 from both sides, we get 5x equals -3. Divide by 5. One of our solutions is x equals -3/5. And the other one, we are going to add 2 to both sides, divide by 3, and the other solution is 2/3. Alrighty then, take a look at this monster. When I see a problem that's a little overwhelming, like this one might be, you just go one step at a time and you just see where the next step is going to lead you. We need to have a 0, so the first thing we have to do is add that 2n squared to both sides, rewriting. We now have 56n squared plus 248n plus 96. I did a little trial and error because I know if I divide every single number by the same number, that's legal. I can do that. No matter what I choose to divide by, I'm dividing 0 by that, so I'll still end up with a 0 on that side. Since those numbers are all even, I knew whatever I was going to use was going to be a multiple of 2, so I just experimented and came up with the number 8. I'm dividing everything by 8, including the 0, so as long as you're doing the same thing on both sides, this is legal. Now we have 7n squared plus 31n plus 12 equals 0. Let's roll this up so I have a little bit more room because we need to factor that. We have to try to factor this polynomial. Let's multiply the 7 and the 12 together, and we get 84. So I am looking for factors of 84 that I can combine in some way to come up with the 31 in the middle. Looks to me it's going to be that 3 and the 28. If you add 3 and 28, that's 31, so that's the pair we want to use. So I'm going to split the 31 in the middle here into 3n and 28n. Factor by grouping, we drop the parentheses in, and we are going to pull numbers out of the first two and the second two. The first one we can take out as 7n. We're left with 7n times n plus 4. And we can take a 3 out of the back end, and now we drop in the parentheses, so it makes sense. So the n plus 4 is what you want in both parentheses, and it's there, so we know we factored correctly. So this is going to turn into 7n plus 3 times n plus 4, and that equals 0. So those are our two factors. Let's set each one equal to 0 and solve. One of the solutions is -3 over 7, and the other one is -4. If you got some use out of this, I would love it if you would like the video and subscribe. If you would like to look at the factoring stuff, here is one for you, and also here's a playlist for algebra. Thanks so much. I'll see you next time. Bye.